Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast and live stream. I'm Jessie Lezak, fractional CMO at BDEX, along with David Finkelstein, BDEX's founder and CEO. How's it going, David? What's new?
Going well, Jesse. Wow, it's the end of the month already. Can you believe it?
No.
It's been a wild month. It's been an exciting one, and it's going to be an exciting podcast today too.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. We have another really exciting guest. Today on Deconstructing Data, we are thrilled to welcome on Sav Khetan, VP of Product Marketing at Tealium. Welcome to the show, Sav.
Oh, thank you, Jesse. And yeah, David, crazy month. Cannot believe that February is already over.
Yeah,
Blowing my mind.
It is amazing how fast time goes by, and we're excited to get this podcast going and talk to you. So we're really happy you joined us today, and we'd love for you to kick it off for us. So why don't you give our viewers and listeners a chance to get to know you, a little bit of background about yourself, and what led you to become VP of Product Marketing at Tealium.
Yeah, I'll try to give the short version. I've been in digital marketing and technology for almost 20 years. I feel like I age myself when I say it. But every time we were doing a lot of personalization back then, and every time we wanted to do personalization, especially in own channels, the most common roadblock was that, hey, we don't have the right data available here. It's either in the CRM system or it's sitting in some other system, and we can't have it available here. And that was just the bane of my existence. And then when I first discovered Tealium back in 2017, I felt like, whoa, how is it that there's a tool like this that exists and I don't know about it already? So I felt like every stack in the world was going to need some tool like this. It just made sense to me. And I was already a partner of Tealium at the time. And I felt like I want to work on this. So they were amazing partners. They brought me on. I did product for a little while, and now I'm in product marketing. And the way I introduce myself usually is I'm a product guy in a marketer's body. And I've been here 6 years now, and I feel we're still scratching the surface. Everything has changed in the last few years, it feels like. So yeah, very excited. And I feel like everything is all about the data. So that's kind of what I want to work on.
That's
awesome.
True. It's all about the data.
All about the data. I'm excited to jump into this conversation, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about what Tealium is doing today?
Yeah, Tealium is not like the other platforms it gets grouped with. We were a tag manager before, all about collecting data right in the experience as soon as it's created on the client side in the browser. But once we saw that, we felt like people are going to want to act on this data at the visitor level, at the audience level. So our founder back then wanted to build a real-time orchestration platform so you could decide exactly when and where you wanted to act on the data. And in fact, they built it before even the CDP term was coined. And then the CDP term comes along, and we get the label of CDP, and we're very happy with that label at the time, but we never looked like anybody else. So we are a real-time data orchestration platform that also has technologies like a CDP or like a streaming tool or like a data collection tool like a tag manager. But truly, we are a open schema data layer that you can do whatever you want with your data, and you can move it from anywhere that it gets created to anywhere that you need it to go or take action along the way, but we don't store it. So yeah, we're a real-time data streaming platform, data orchestration platform. We are not like other CDPs, and we very much like to sit along with your warehouse or your other tools and things like that.
Awesome. So I'm actually really intrigued about our first topic, because as a CDP, I'd love to sort of dig into your thoughts on the state of AI, current trends and impact. So share with us your thoughts here, where you see things going.
Yeah. Oh my God. I can't think of a single day in the last year and a half that I haven't talked about AI. It feels like from that first post from OpenAI that this is the photo of an astronaut riding a horse. This is created by ChatGPT. Like literally from that day to now, I feel like all I've done is talk about AI. The hype train has been pretty insane. So if I had to summarize what's happening just for our listeners, the way I would think about it is, first, AI is not one thing, it's two things. Gen AI is not the same as the traditional machine learning and AI we've been talking about for decades. Whether it's a propensity model or a prediction or a recommendation, those things have been going on for a very long time, and they're very different than what we all hear in the news all day, which is Gen AI, which is the Open AI and the Anthropic and Gemini, and all those things. So first, state of AI, two different things. Now, one of the comments I heard from a partner recently that I loved was Gen AI driving all the hype, all the news, all the buzz, all the investment. But honestly, at enterprises and all my customers, the cash register, the ROI is coming from the traditional AI side of the house. That's where you're able to really unlock customer experience value. You're able to get precise with your audiences and your visitors. That lives on this side of the house. And then Gen AI is right now really all about helping you do your job better. It's doing amazing things for productivity, for content creation, for summarization, for analysis, for those kinds of things, for code. But customer facing Gen AI is a little bit slow because of regulation, because of hallucinations. So I would say the two biggest trends right now are a lot of pressure on all companies from their boards and investors to do more with AI. A lot of news and noise about how much AI is impacting things. So it's causing friction and confusion because people feel they should have already done more with it. But on the other hand, because of all this hype and investment, so many tools and so many innovations are coming that you can actually do a lot more with AI than you could ever do before. One of the most common lines I hear in AI right now is, "This is the worst it's ever going to be. No matter how you look at it, it's only going to be better tomorrow." So from that point of view, I'm extremely motivated and excited about what's coming. But what I tell my customers is the hype is hype. It's not, the possibility is not wrong, but the timing of the possibility is a little bit exaggerated right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. This is the worst it's ever going to be. And I've tested a ton of different AI products, and some of them just were even below okay.
Exactly.
But,
I mean, there was just a research just last week that over 50% of all Gen AI chatbots are still hallucinating right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of weird things that you can get a lot of weird output from a lot of different types of, and I'm not even talking about just the straight up sort of chat GPT type AIs. I'm talking about all these different products that say they're going to do all kinds of different things. And then you try to use it and you're just like, really? That didn't work,
Yeah, that's so
but
true. Sorry, go ahead.
but to your point, and what I was going to say is just it can only get better. And I think that's why everybody's creating a tool and saying, okay, we know it's not going to be great right now, but if we can kick it off and we can just start doing it and we can get some backing and we can, make it better and better literally every day. And I think that, we're seeing that. We're seeing every day a new, something new comes out and things get better. And so, it's getting better literally every day.
Yeah, the biggest advice I'm giving everybody is, you hear that, oh, will AI take my job? Like, we don't know, right? We have no idea. But a person using AI will probably take your job if you don't adapt. So
Yeah.
no matter what your role is, I can tell you that AI is going to affect some part of your job. And the best thing you can do, I mean, this is the best time for all of us as consumers to have access to so many free AI tools. This is the best time to experiment, to learn, to understand how prompts work, to understand how the models react and respond. You can use it for fun, you can use it for work. You got to be experimenting with it. But the expectation that it just works at scale in the business context, especially for Gen AI, that's the part where I think we have to just wait a little bit. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't be experimenting with it.
Such a great point. So before we transition on, I'm curious from both of you, because David, we haven't really asked you about the state of AI just in general. Be curious to get your take on that, David. But also want to ask you if there's anything else you want to wrap up with on this topic, Sav, in terms of the state of AI, current trends, and impact.
So, David, why don't you go first?
Okay. Yeah, state of AI. Look, I kind of alluded to it, right? And so did Sav. It's like there's a lot out there, A lot of it doesn't work really the way you expect it to work right now. And to his point, it's probably the worst it's ever going to get right now, which means it's just going to get better. It gets better every day. I think that from a state of AI point, I mean, Sav said it best. We've been doing forms of AI and machine learning for many, many years, for decades. And a lot, especially some of the larger companies, the big walled gardens have always been, they've been using it for a lot longer than us. ChatGPT comes out. Now everybody has access to it at their fingertips. And now, a ton of other tools start getting built, a lot of them on that backbone. And that's all well and good. It just means that, there's more and more opportunity being created for anyone that understands how to use it. So I think when you think about the state of AI, and if you're somebody listening right now and you're saying to yourself, like, how do I make sure that I continue to have value as as an employee, as a person in my job? Well, the way that you maintain that value is understanding how you can leverage AI to do your job better. I mean, heck, as a CEO, I'm looking at it every day, and because I'm pulled in so many different directions, just like any founder is, and I'm always looking for ways to leverage it to make my job easier. And so if I'm doing that, then really everybody should be doing that, right? At any job level. And the goal as an employee, as somebody working even for another company, the way that you can add more value to your job and to what you're doing is learn how to leverage AI so that you can do your job better. And that will get noticed, and that will just improve everything that you're doing. So I think that that's where the true impact is, and where people should be thinking about how they look at it.
I love that. Yes, we have our conference next week, and my session is on AI, of course. So I've been thinking about examples, and one of the way I thought about this was, if you look at traditional AI and ML, the things that we don't think are as seductive as Gen AI maybe, the reality is you can boil it down to two simple things. I want to do something like launch a product or do this campaign. AI, please help me find the right people for this business goal. And AI will give you a lot of precision about which people are most likely to, benefit from that offer or that message or whatever you want to do. You can flip that and you can say, oh, Sav is in my interaction right now. Tell me more about Sav. What's the best offer I can give Sav? What can you tell me about the likelihood that Sav will do X? So on the one hand, start with business outcome first, and AI can help you find the right people. Or you can flip it and start with the individual first, and AI will help you find the right experience or message to give this person. So it's like the simplest way you can boil it down and how you can use it. And then if you flip that to Gen AI, the best thing that I feel has happened with Gen AI is that natural language processing is now so advanced that you can just talk to these machines, right? All these bots that are sitting around, they can understand everything we're trying to tell them, and where they're struggling is what they do on the other side. But because that natural language processing is so powerful, now you can talk to your data. Now you can talk to documents. Now you can summarize this very giant piece of text. So even in our internal use, we have a bunch of different AI tools that we're using. All of them, when we started using them, let's say like 4 months ago, all the answers felt okay, not great, just not perfect yet. And 4 months in, they're looking very close. Today, somebody sent me a spreadsheet of a competitive audit between Tealium and a bunch of other competitors, and I found one thing that I would change in it, maybe in this huge spreadsheet. And 4 months ago, I felt I was changing more than half the spreadsheet. So everything you just said, David, please, to listeners, just if you're not already playing with it, just experiment. But it's moving really fast, and it's very motivating and exciting. As much as the stress and the friction for us as business people trying to use it, the reality as consumers, it's amazing. It's a great time to be experimenting, actually.
Yes, definitely. And I'll have to give a little credibility to what David said, because David, it's been really great being connected with you through this AI boom, because you're always sharing all the awesome tools to test out. not just the recent one that we've been talking about, but just all along the line with like video editing tools. I mean, ChatGPT, Claude, there's so many out there, and we always hear about the best ones here, but we
Yeah,
need
and
data to
I have
go
another
ahead.
one that's going to connect to this next topic too.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
Okay, data for AI. Let's get into it. Collection, management, and activation. Well, why don't you start us off, David?
Okay, so real scenario. So we had a scenario here where we had to look at, I think it was something like 1,800 data segments, audiences that were, that we're syndicating. And we had to take these new audiences that we created, and just from the audience names that we use in our platform, we had to come up with descriptions for them. And we had to build an output file to match the taxonomy format that this third-party platform wanted the format in. So we basically went from our taxonomy and exported it into a CSV. And we said, okay, well, how are we going to manipulate this? Like, there's 1,800 of them. We don't want to do this manually. There's got to be a better way. I found a tool that I'd never heard of before. I did a search online. It's called Julius.ai.
Okay, I've never heard of that one either.
Never heard of this one.
Yeah.
And it was, so I went and I was searching for a tool that I could do some, or we as a team could do some data manipulation with. Turned out I was able to, and so I had tried, in all honesty, I tried to use Perplexity and Claude for this, and it didn't work. So that's what set me off to look for something else. And I found this tool, Julius. And so we uploaded the CSV, and basically all we did is just explain the different columns that we had, and said, okay, well, using this one column, can you come up with a description for what you think the data segment how the data segment should be described, just by looking at the taxonomy itself? And so the taxonomy might have been something like, BDX being the top hierarchy, and then it was like, whatever, persona, finances, car loan.
Yeah,
okay?
Perfect. Category,
whatever,
yeah.
as a car loan, something, or whatever, car loan, or whatever, or
A product category or something, yeah.
or it could have been mortgage or whatever,
Yeah.
just as an example. And it went through 1,800, 1,800 rows through this, and came up with descriptions for all of these. And it did a pretty good job. It was like consumers that have a car loan, or consumers that have a mortgage. And it went down the line, and it figured out most of them. And it did such a good job that I think it probably maybe only took about maybe an hour for somebody to go through 1,800 rows and just review them all and see if they were good enough, and maybe change a few of them. And so it was really impressed. And that was just one piece of it. I mean, we had to have it manipulate and change the fields and do this all, add additional fields and things like that to get it in the format that we needed it to be, to get into this platform. But it was just really impressive how we could literally just tell it what to do. And asked it to give us suggestions for descriptions, and it worked.
Probably reduced the work from like a week to a day, right?
Oh, yeah, we've done this in the past, in years past. Yeah, easily a week, and multiple people just going in and having to painstakingly, manipulate this data and read every row and come up with descriptions. And it's just like, and I can only imagine those people's eyeballs just popping out of their head trying to do this,
Well, and that's, that story is actually the best example of why it's worth experimenting with this, because what I've been telling my customers is, it might not be great, but it will get you 80% of the way there in a very short amount of time. So you don't have the blank page blocker anymore, that I don't know where to start. It's much easier as a human being to react to something than to start fresh with something. And Gen AI will give you a crappy version, and that crappy version is getting better every day, and it will just move you quite far along. Now, since this topic is with the data related topic, one thing to think about, and something that my partners say a lot, is if you're just using an LLM, or even if you sort of coached it and fine-tuned it a little bit, the end of the day, the LLM without your data is the same LLM that all your competitors are also using, right? What changes the Gen AI experience for your business is your data. Without that, it's just the general LLM that everybody has access to. And because nobody's building their own LLM, right? The large language model is not something that a normal company can build. So now, if you just think about AI as take a step back, AI is a machine learning model, and then it's your data, and then it's the tuning and coaching that you give it. Those are the three biggest, very broad spectrum components that will make the output customized and targeted to your goals as a business. And then you add to that scale, which is how fast and how often do I want to do this. And those are the general considerations that are not all immediately obvious and not easy. So in Gen AI, the big problem is I have to look at everything that comes out of it before I can put it in front of my customer. So as a result, what we're finding is customers are using it for data that's coming in, like what you just said, right? I have 1,800 rows and I need to categorize them. So imagine doing that for customer reviews. Customer review, which is 400 characters, is usually unstructured data. I can't actually do anything with it. But the minute I run it through a Gen AI model on the way in, I can get a label, I can get a summary, I can get a slight tweak, and then now I have a piece of data that I can use that's structured, and suddenly it makes all this incoming video and text and image data immediately actionable. So we're finding those are very powerful uses of Gen AI. But now, if I talk about the data side of things, the typically the gap was I have this model, I need a lot of training data to train this model, and maybe I don't have the data organized, maybe I have to prep it, maybe I have to label it. It was a very big lift, and that's where a lot of the innovation is happening. A lot of the tools, just the part that you were saying just now, you can very quickly clean up data sets, you can label them, you can categorize them, you can even do synthetic data. So on that first stage of getting a model off the ground, that part is getting handled. Second stage, I'm running this model and I have to keep it updated constantly, and I have to feed it with real data. That's becoming easier and easier. Databricks and Snowflake and Amazon, everybody's giving you a lot of ways to just move really fast in this category also, and not to count all the platform tools that are coming out. But then when it becomes tricky is now I want to use this model. Which decision in my customer journey is this model going to feed? And how do I connect my model, which might be sitting in one platform, to my customer data, which might be sitting in my warehouse or my CDP, to my customer interaction? Those 3 points have now become the 3 areas that I have to orchestrate my data and my AI output. So as a result, what happens is that's where the collection, management, activation is starting to become a new challenge. So, we started the conversation with CDPs. CDPs actually were designed, at least our vision was designed for collect and activate data, orchestrate with consent, and then store and aggregate data. There were 3 sort of chapters to the CDP. Then the warehouse comes in and they take care of the aggregate part completely. Single source of truth, customer 360, all live in the warehouse now. What now is becoming a big gap is this activation and orchestration, because that I got to do depending on my use case, depending on my model, depending on where I want to use my model. So it's becoming a very daily challenge now. You got to experiment so much with AI that you were using this model. Now you got to pivot and use this different model. It lives in a different spot, or you got to use it in a different point in the journey. Are you going to build new piping, or are you going to, work with what you have? So I don't know if I jumped around a little bit there, but the data element for the AI is the blocker in our mind. Like the model is getting easier and easier and easier, but which data goes to this model at what point, and then how do you use the output of the model and at what point? That's become the blocker in most places, because we're finding customers are investing in that after they find success with the model, and then you usually feel like you're scrambling. I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah, perfect sense. And so, and we that's another thing that we have talked about here before. Like the data is really the most important piece of the AI, right? I mean, the old adage goes, garbage in, garbage out, and with AI, it rings true. If your data is not clean going in, then your product coming out will suffer from it as well. So that's so crucial.
There's never been a better example of garbage in, garbage out than AI. The model cannot make bad data into a better score. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
And that's, I think, you can go look anywhere online right now. Every single platform says your AI needs better data. You need better data for AI. It's like the most universal line you see everywhere. And even when I'm writing copy for the website, I laugh and then I write the same thing because I think it's like the most true thing you can say about AI.
It's true. Yeah, and we hear it here all the time. It comes up a lot. But I loved what you said about, for people who don't use AI or haven't really like embraced it yet. So like probably not a lot of the people here. But one thing you mentioned that I think could really simplify it for them is it's always easier for humans to have a draft of something to react to rather than starting from scratch. So if nothing else resonates with you, just think of that every time you're starting something new and you have that pain point. But with that, is there anything else on data for AI collection, management, and activation either of you want to add?
What I'll say is that it's very easy to think that I will deal with my data needs or my data integration needs or my data foundation needs after I figure out my AI. And that's okay. But what that does is it makes your data strategy in service to your AI strategy, when actually they're sort of related but independent. And if you think about your data strategy from a longer term flexibility, future proofing point of view, then it actually gives you more opportunity to try different AI things. So that's the biggest difference that we notice between early adopters and businesses that are further along in the AI maturity journey and people who are just starting out. Most businesses who are just starting out, we're finding, is that they are reacting to their AI needs after they've solved the AI challenge of which model am I going to use, what is it going to tell me, how am I going to use that, then they go will solve the data integration part of it. Whereas our advice to everybody is your data layer is going to be critical no matter what you do. So you should be planning your future strategy based on, hey, as a business, how do I want to use my data? What data is going to be needed where, when, what kind of things am I going to have to do with it? And plan that now, because that's always necessary. So then you take that bottleneck completely out of these conversations if you plan that separately from your AI strategy. So that's the biggest recommendation I could be giving the customers right now.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's putting the cart before the horse if you're choosing AI strategy first before your data strategy, right? I mean, your data is going to drive your strategy, and you can't even test your AI if you don't have the data in place to do it. And to your point, your collection and management accountability, all of that needs to be in place first in order for you to truly test it and understand whether it's going to work.
Yeah, there is no AI success without a lot of pivots, and every pivot gets restricted if you're responding instead of if you plan some flexibility in your data layer. I mean, I believed a long time ago that flexibility in the data layer was something you should plan, but the need was not as big as it is now. AI has made that almost. We were just talking about identity graph, right? So if you have to put the right identifier in your data before you send it to the AI, and now because the DMPs are not as functional as they were, you might have to try different ID partners to get the right output from your AI. And you need a data layer that'll allow you to fix those and replace those and try those. Same thing we're finding with enrichments and with adding context to the data. If your data is in some other tool's data model, and then you're making your AI use that data model, either you're setting yourself up to be locked into that data model, or you're having to do ETL before you send that data to your AI. Either scenario is not setting you up for future. Instead, if you had your own data vision and model and you apply that to your data layer always, then all your AI is based on that data language now. And now it doesn't matter if you have to change, right? So there's just all these considerations that in hindsight feels a little bit obvious, obviously, but when you're starting out, it can feel overwhelming and it can feel very stressful. So I empathize a lot with anybody who's just starting this journey. But honestly, you don't know what you're going to need for AI, but you do know what flexibility you should plan into your data layer. So that's, I mean, of course, I'm a data company, so I will say that, but I genuinely believe that. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
I think we're actually going backwards because in our topics. So when we
Oh,
go to
yeah.
the next topic of breaking data silos and unifying your organization, this should actually be the first thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
first we need to do this, then we need to worry about our data collection and management, and then we need to worry about the AI. And so let's it's okay. It's okay. We're doing this backwards, and maybe it's a good thing, because this will be the last thing on people's minds when they when they finish with this and listening to this podcast. So talk to us about breaking these data silos.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's a great point that you just made, that we're talking about it backwards a little bit, but I also feel like talking about it this way maybe is driving the point home about
Yeah.
why this is now becoming a topic again. When we started talking about, when you were in the DMP world, probably you were talking about this because you're like, oh, you get a really good view of your customer. I know in the CDP space, I've been talking about breaking silos from day one. And then CDWs now are saying the same thing, the warehouses. But the reality is, the way my boss described it to me yesterday, Mike Anderson, our founder, the way he described it was, when you had the old analytics world, your data had all like EVAR 1, EVAR 2, EPROP 1. It had all these labels, right? It had technical data language labels. And you got a different set of labels from every tool. And honestly, the silo was being created because when you looked at data, it didn't look like the other data set from the other tool. So now you have these two data sets. They don't talk to each other. They don't look the same. You don't know how to make sense of them without some sort of translation layer. And that's now a silo, right? You can't put them together. So in his mind, if you label data with your data language, with your human data language, your business language, and you applied that to all data, now when you're putting the data together, all the data is speaking the same language. And now suddenly you can put it together and you can use it. So that was the first sort of explanation I've heard about how a data model can help breaking data silos. But what most people talk about is, coming from the old, like I grew up in the CRM, CMS world. I would have my IT would have my warehouse with a lot of data in it. My CRM system would have data. My analytics system would have data. And let's say my finance or my service system has data. And these data sets, they all have a different part of the profile of me as a customer. I'm making phone calls, that data lives here. I'm responding to emails, that data lives here. I'm going on the website, that data lives here. And then some of the data lives in the warehouse. And every tool is acting on the data it has, and it's not leveraging data from other places. So even if I maybe called and ordered something, you're still sending me an email to order the same thing because you don't know. So that was the reason where everybody kept saying, till you get a single view or till you have a unified place where you can look at all this data together, you don't have the right picture about what this person has done with your brand. And then you're selling them something or offering them something that's not relevant. That was the old conversation. Now it's sort of like, hey, hang on, pretty much anything you want to do, you should be looking at the whole data set. You want to do analytics, you should be looking at the whole data set. You want to do AI, you should be looking at the whole data set, right? So now it's a very normal concept for people that I want to have all my data in one place and then do my activity. And primarily analytics and AI are the two big ones. And then audiences, I would say, is the third one, where having all the data in one place makes it way more useful for you. But what we are seeing now is this has become an enterprise initiative. Before, it was a marketing initiative or a IT initiative. Now it's an enterprise initiative. Enterprises are tasking IT that go put all data in one place, make me this central data asset, and then I want all my business units to use that central data asset. So now that is what is, I think, the next hill that everybody's trying to climb. It's not just breaking silos, but it's breaking silos for an enterprise goal. And that means this data set has to do a lot. This warehouse has to do a lot. And you have to think about it in many different ways. But I think it's the right way to use a warehouse, and it's the right thing to think about. So that's the, it is the same silo idea, but the scale has changed in the last few years, I would say.
Yeah, 100%. I don't even know if I could add anything to that. I mean, it was so well said. I mean, just to break it down, I mean, to your point, marketing used to be either surrounded by, what's going on in the CRM or what's going on in, wherever we're doing our advertising, and it was really just that. And the only data you had was that. And now you have to look at everything. And so you need to break those silos. You need to be looking at everything from what's going on in the CRM to what's going on in your advertising, but what's going on in customer support, what's going on in finance, because now you can connect all of those things together and you can build a much better picture of who your customer is and what is that customer doing. What have they done before? You can build audiences and target based on all of this data, which you never could do before. And so it's so powerful once you sort of break down those silos and put it all in one place. It's amazing what can be done today that couldn't be done, just several years back.
It feels wild. And in fact, I think one of the things I didn't talk about is just data privacy and regulation and consent. Like the minute you start thinking about your responsibility as a data controller and a processor, now putting all the data in one place becomes even more necessary, because the data subject is allowed to come and say, show me all the data you know about me. Well, if you don't have it organized, how are you going to do that? If they say delete all my data, if you don't have it organized, you can't do it properly. It's a big hassle to go search for all data about Sav across your stack. So I think the data privacy was the first sort of accelerant towards this unified data system. Then the CDP comes along, and now AI has come and just solidified that value. And to your point, the warehouses have become easy and accessible and affordable. Well, I don't know if they are fully affordable yet, but they're going there. So it's making this just a business goal that we're seeing across the world now.
Yeah, absolutely.
We did get one comment here. How do you create a culture where, or I guess this question, culture where data is shared instead of hoarded?
I love that question so much. First, I'll say, if you can create that culture, you're already ahead. That is definitely what changes. In fact, one of the big things we talk about, I read this quote just last week from Deloitte, that AI adoption is moving at the speed of organizational change. Like, nobody is realizing that the blockers for AI are not AI. The blockers for AI are people, our processes, our mindset, are just the need for flexibility. These are all the things that are preventing people from actually adopting AI right now, or not preventing, but they are the blockers. So similarly, data hoarding became a thing because first, data was not available easily, then it was not easy to collect, then it was not easy to store and manage. So everybody you had to fight with your general organization to get your own data store. So then people started hoarding it. Now it's becoming the opposite. Because of AI and because of the ease of use of data, many people have ideas. Just, what David was sharing about Julius, that it's so easy to do stuff with data now. There's no way that one group can think about all the ways they're going to use the data. And there's no possible way that they can imagine what service benefits will get unlocked with this data, or what call center benefits will get unlocked, or each CRM benefits. So the only way to actually make the data set a true asset is to share it. If you hoard it, even if it's the best data asset you have in the world, it's not actually an asset. It's just data, and it's probably a cost center. When it becomes revenue is when you share it. And that's, I think, more organizations are starting to realize that. At least I hope so.
Yeah, and I think that goes down to, like, sort of company culture. Is the company all moving in the same direction, right? Which is a very, it's typical, important, sort of company culture, sort of, thought process. Are we all moving in the same direction? And if we're all moving in the same direction and we all have the same goals, then seeing that data used that you're hoarding, and seeing it go to use to drive revenue, you can take pride in that. That person that was in charge of that data, that, in charge of the data governance around, your CRM data or your finance data or your customer service data, you can take pride in the fact that, some other, division got to leverage that data and drive revenue from it, that's your data that did that.
Yep.
And so that's the way I would sort of think about that from a data hoarding perspective. You
Yeah, I
can't
love it.
if you're hoarding it yourself.
That's such a, David, I think I'm going to use that. Like, if you share it, then the value of data is becoming one to many. If you hoard it, then your value of your data is one to one, and your multiplier is only coming when it's going out there. So yeah, I love that, David. What a great point.
Thanks.
Such a great point. But I know we're getting close to the end of the show. And last week we almost missed tech stack. So I want to make sure, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, I want to make sure we get to it. We would love to hear, what are some of your favorite tools in your tech stack that are empowering you and your team, Sav?
Ooh, so okay, I'm going to give a two-part answer. In my history, in my younger days, it was the CMS tools and the CRM tools that I loved a lot, just because that's where I grew up and that's what I know best. And then personalization tools. But today, I'm very excited about the data discovery tools and the tools that are helping you find things in your data that you didn't know that you should be looking for. Intelligence, insight, all the new analytics offerings that are coming, especially the ones that can sit on top of your warehouse. So I love data. So my favorite tools right now are the warehouse orchestration tools, the audience management tools, the intelligence tools, even data clean rooms. Honestly, I think they're giving such a great value that I kind of enjoy tools that help you do more with data and help you put data together and then find missing opportunities.
Absolutely.
I said that at the beginning of the call, right? I'm the biggest nerd you're going to meet about this topic.
I love that. Full circle, all right back to the end.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. Sav, before we go, would you like to let listeners know how they could reach out to you if they'd like to reach you after the episode?
Yeah, LinkedIn, I'm active on LinkedIn. I try to be, at least. But I always tell people when I do a webinar or something, come fight with me on LinkedIn. If you disagree with something I said, if you have a different opinion, I want to hear it. I want to debate with you, and I want to evolve my thinking. And honestly, the best part about our current environment is there's 50 options to do anything we want to do, and nobody is doing it the best possible way. There's always a better way. So I love learning those, and I love sharing those. And there's a lot of lessons we all have for each other in this world now. So I just love the fact that as a consumer and as a citizen of the MarTech world, that innovation is at peak right now. You couldn't ask for anything more. It's almost like what my cell phone used to give me in terms of innovation satisfaction. I'm also starting to get now from MarTech, which is amazing.
That's awesome. Well, we really appreciate you joining us today, Sav. This has been great. I'm going to give Layla Tembo a shout out because we see that she did post another question on LinkedIn. But since we're out of time, I think what I'll do and ask Sav to do the same. Maybe we can both go on LinkedIn and respond to her question as well.
And great questions, Layla. More power to you.
Yeah, thanks again for joining us. Thank you, Layla, for the question. And Jesse, I'm going to let you close this out then.
I'll close this out. And while I close this out, I put the link to the show in the private chat so you both can reply to her. So let me talk to you, audience, a little bit about BeatX, because we want to invite you to get powered by BeatX and build authentic connections with your audience and drive unprecedented engagement. So just imagine harnessing the power of AI, like we've been talking about today, to craft your audiences, which in marketing we struggle with a lot, but audiences that actually truly resonate with your brand, ensuring that your marketing hits the mark every time. So let's bring you closer to your marketing goals, and we are eager to guide you. Let me pop up a QR code on the screen. If you're watching, you can just scan that code. Otherwise, you can head on over to beatx.com and click on Talk to an Expert and get powered by BeatX. Our team would love to talk to you. And for anyone who's curious, we would love to have you or anyone you know on the show. We are booking up through the year. So now's the time to book up if you want to get on our regular Thursday time slot. Otherwise, we will start taking some paid opportunities on Tuesdays if that's of interest to you. But just reach out to us if you're interested. You can email us at info@beatx.com and share your qualitative data with us so we can make this show better for you. And thanks again so much, Sav, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Likewise. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.